Good night. Good night. Good evening. Let's try good evening first. Hey, thanks for joining us. It's been a good service. Take care. Good evening. How are you doing? Welcome to Mile High Church, our spiritual community, and our Wednesday night live service. Glad to see all the folks in the room, and to you who are watching us online, welcome. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. Yes, applause. It's a rowdy crowd tonight. Watch out. Things will be thrown, words will be spoken. We are blessed. Tonight, we are continuing a three-part series based on the book, The Emerald Earth, Cultivating a Natural Spirituality and Serving Creative Beauty in the World. That's a title, by Felicia Norton and Charles Smith. And tonight, Reverend Zemirah is going to take us into the second part of that series, bring us inward to cultivate a deep connection with Mother Earth. But first, we are blessed with the talent and the skill of Rob, Stu, Josh, Susan, and the amazing Dr. Barry Ebert. Take it away.
I love the trees, the way they sway and swing in gentle breeze. In the early days of spring, the leaves unfolding with the promise they've been holding. It's times like these. I love the trees, I love the trees, the way they keep me cool on a summer day. When I'm free and out of school, I'm up in the branches like a hero taking chances. It's times like these. I love the trees, they're always changing with the seasons, just like you and me, always reaching for the light of day and helping us breathe. They got their roots way down in the solid ground, they can weather any storm. And when their time is done, we chop them down, and the fires keep us warm. I love the trees, the way their leaves turn gold when the days go short and the nights grow cold. What a beautiful show when the sunlight makes them glow. It's times like these. I love the trees, I love the trees, the way they stand so strong through the wintertime. The weekends seem so long, but they're wise enough to know that there's new life beneath the snow. It's times like these. I love the trees, they're always changing with the seasons, just like you and me, always reaching for the light of day and helping us breathe. They got their roots way down in the solid ground, they can weather any storm. And when their time is done, we chop them down, and the fires keep us warm. I love the trees, in each and every season, they're friends of mine. And there's a good reason when I breathe out, they breathe in. It's a chain of life that never ends. It's times like these. I love the trees, yeah. When I breathe out, they breathe in. It's a chain of life that never ends. It's times like these. I love the trees. It's times like these. I love the trees. Yeah. All right. So it's great that it's springtime, isn't it? We got anybody, any gardeners here tonight? You guys pumped for getting some seeds in the ground? All right. So I got some potatoes in today. Felt pretty good about that. So we're going to do a song called Grow in Our Garden in honor of Earth Day and this talk that Zemirah and Simon have put together here about the emerald earth. And growing stuff is one of the cool things that we get to do. So a lot of you know this one. Counting on you to sing the chorus. Kind of get the high notes over in here, all right? So when Sherry gets her seat here, we'll go ahead. All right. Come on, here we go. The world is a garden, so fertile and fine, and we get to tend it while we're together in time. We live in a greenhouse, what a beautiful show. We're learning by reaping all the seeds that we sow. We're growing our garden, we're planting good seed. Love in the rain, love in the sun, we got all that we need. Already seeing the harvest that'll come in its own good time. We're growing our garden, and we're all growing up just fine. When the weeds come a-calling, as weeds always do, we'll take time to pull them, so all the good can get through. So glad to be in this garden, working together with you. We're keeping it simple, and we're keeping it true. We're growing our garden, we're planting good seed. Love in the rain, love in the sun, we got all that we need. Already seeing the harvest that'll come in its own good time. We're growing our garden, and we're all growing up just fine. Garden, so fertile and fine, and we get to tend it while we're together in time. We live in a greenhouse, what a beautiful show. We're learning by reaping all the seeds that we sow. Here we go. We're growing our garden, we're planting good seed. Love in the rain, love in the sun, we got all that we need. Already seeing the harvest that'll come in its own good time. We're growing our garden, and we're all growing up just fine. Yeah, we're growing our garden, we're planting good seed. Love in the rain, love in the sun, we got all that we need. Already seeing the harvest that'll come in its own good time. We're growing our garden, and we're all growing up just fine. Yeah, we're growing our garden, and we're all growing up just fine. Good work. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Rob Lowe over here on the piano. Yeah. So we're going to do a song now about one of my favorite trees. And one of my favorite trees right now is growing out in front of the vote center. So when you go out tonight, if you didn't see it on your way in, check it out on the way out in front of the vote center. There's a beautiful, I think it's a crab apple, and it's white, and it's just stunning. And today's kind of its best day of the whole year, so don't miss it, okay? So, and I invite you in your mind right now to just go to your favorite tree and just celebrate how cool it is to be in the shade of a beautiful tree and to love this beautiful earth. This is called the tree in my front yard.
1, 2, 3.
There's a tree in my front yard. Oh, what a tree it is. In wintertime it lets the sun shine through. In summer it keeps me hid. The world turns green when the leaves unfold. Then in fall I'll be jumping in pile of gold, falling from the tree in my front yard. The man next door helped plant it in the ground. The tree in my front yard. He never thought that tree would grow so tall, that the soil was just too hard. The tree moved in and he liked it fine, and grew up over this house of mine. The tree in my front yard. Oh, what a tree it is. To climb on those sturdy arms, share my secrets there. Swing like a monkey, up and down, but the tree don't seem to care. Seems to hear the things I say, and what I feel, he feels that way. The tree in my front yard. Oh, what a tree it is. Got his roots sunk way down deep, the tree in my front yard. But in a moonlight breeze, she whispers songs to me. She dances with the stars. What a balance the tree has found, nestled in this holy ground. The tree in my front yard. Oh, what a tree it is. The tree in my front yard. What a tree it is. Put your hands together for Reverend Zemirah right there. There she is, looking emerald green herself.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Barry. You know, Dr. Barry, you and the band always put me right back into my heart. And so I am so grateful for the music tonight. And guess what? All of those songs about trees were chosen, and I wrote the talk about trees, and it came together with spirit. Isn't it amazing when that happens? It's just all, I came in tonight and they were like, they're all about trees. I wrote about, anyway, I'm so delighted to be here with all of you, and what a delight it is to carry on and to pick up where Reverend Simon so beautifully left off last week. He shared with us his heartfelt story of his life with his dad, and about losing his dad to heart disease, and how that is so related to our present pains at the heart of our planet. And then Reverend Simon so brilliantly continued on Sunday with his masterful storytelling, where he shared about the great work defined through Thomas Berry as our present need to safeguard and to restore the natural world. And so tonight, I am bringing our attention inward. We are going to look together at our inner relationship, both with ourselves and also with Mother Earth. You know, as I was sitting down on Sunday afternoon to prepare this talk, I was sitting in my home office, and outside, I have a window to the side of my office, and there's a tree outside. And just when I sat down to begin to write, this mourning dove, this love dove, you know, the lovebirds, came and sat in one of those branches and sat there for the longest time. And to me, throughout my life, that has been a real symbol for me. Have you ever had that experience where you feel as if God is sending you a symbol that is meant just for you right when you need it so that you can understand? And for me, the symbol of that dove was about gentleness and the care that I wanted to, that energy of care that I wanted to weave into this talk today. You know, several years ago, I visited Lourdes, France, and I went on a pilgrimage there so that I could bathe in the sacred waters in Lourdes, France. And while bathe that's an interesting word, because really I was dunked by the nuns when I got there in ice cold freezing water. But I went to Lourdes, France because I wanted to gain that connection with sacred holy waters, which I think is so intricately connected to our relationship to Mother Earth. But while I was there, I entered into a little shop. And while I was in that shop, I purchased a picture. And we're going to put a picture of the picture up on the slide up there. And you can see in that picture, it's so beautifully, to me, it represents Mother Earth reaching up. And there is Mother Earth reaching up with that request. And then you see this dove that is descending down as if to land in the hands of Mother Earth. And the dove, as you know, has been a symbol of the Holy Spirit since ancient times. In the Bible, it's written about the dove, the Holy Spirit symbolized as a dove. And to me, what that is speaking to is that Mother Earth is right now reaching up with this so sacred request. And we have the opportunity to respond. The Holy Spirit working in, as, and through us to respond to that request. And so tonight, what must we do? We're going to talk about what we must do to cultivate that inner landscape, that relationship within ourselves, within our hearts, in order to become a beneficial presence to Mother Earth and to answer that call. And I'd like to share with you a couple of ideas, and they both involve going out into the woods. You know, as a little girl, I was blessed, much like Christopher Robin and Winnie the Pooh, to have my very own 100-acre wood. I grew up on a small farm in Illinois, and behind our farmhouse, we had this vast woodlands. It was my very own forest. And what I loved, when I think about springtime, I think about that every springtime, my mom, my dad, my sister, my aunt, and my grandma, we would set out on the most fabulous expedition, otherwise known as our annual search for mushrooms out in the forest. And we would suit up and we would gear up and trek out into the wilderness through the shagbark hickories, through the mayapples, through the dogtooth violets, through the bluebells. And we would go out past the crick, as we called it. We called it the crick. It was the crick. Anyway, we crossed the crick and we go past the bubbling spring where we could actually drink straight from Mother Earth. And we would go deep out into the forest with our baskets in order to search for these little treasures. And these little treasures, these little mushrooms, were the kind you could eat. And at the end of the day, whether we had two or we had 1 year, we had a giant one, whether we had two or a giant one, my grandma would cut those up, she would bread them and she'd fry them in butter, and they were heaven to our taste buds. It was such a delight. But you know what I noticed in those times is that no matter what, emotional chaos either on the surface or on the undercurrents of our family life, no matter what was going on, we would trek out into the woods and something magical would happen. Our hearts would open, we would root in, we would begin to connect with each other, and we would enjoy, if just for a little while. But the point was, we go out into the woods in search of treasure, but we would come back with a recalibrated soul. And we would have this absorption of the energy of nature. Nature has the inherent power to transform. Nature is a fundamental practice, a spiritual practice in and of its essence. And so science is proving that there's so much more to the forest than what we see. Underneath, there are millions and millions of biological pathways that interconnect, and they're finding, that the forest is a single living organism. So much so that when one tree is in distress, the others begin to send it nutrients through the root system. And so what we see in essence is this interconnection. And it was so beautifully expressed and shared through environmental activist Julia Butterfly Hill, who lived in a redwood tree called Luna. She lived there for 738 days on a small plywood platform way up in the redwood tree, and it was covered by a tarp. Food would be hoisted up using a pulley system, and she lived there because she was attempting to save the old growth forest from clear cutting. While she was up there, she began to truly experience and to connect in a very deep way with this tree, Luna. They formed a relationship and a connection. And these are her words. When I was climbing up around the tree, in the beginning I would get a little bit of sap on me. That's how these trees communicate. And that's how they grow. They deal with things like lightning strikes and seasonal changes. But one day, when they were cutting down some of the trees very close, and as these trees would fall, they were hitting Luna as they fell down. And she said, I began to cry and I grabbed on to Luna, because I felt so ashamed that I was part of a tribe that has lost its roots so long ago. And after that, everywhere I look, I could see how we were losing our roots in every way that I turned, and that shame was eating me alive. I was so sad and overwhelmed with the grief of sitting through an active logging plan, watching those sacred beings forever being lost. So that I grabbed onto Luna, and then I sat up. And when I looked down, I was covered from head to toe in sap. Not just a little bit sticking to my feet and hands as was normal, but it was all over my entire body. I climbed around on that tree and I noticed that sap was pouring out of Luna. It was pouring out of her, and it hit me that Luna was communicating that grief of the loss of her family. That grief is like sap. It's not something you can wash away easily. It's something that clings to us. It's something that shapes us, and it's a part of how we grow into being. It's interesting, she continues to write, it's interesting to note that later a scientist who heard me talking about that sent me all of these articles from very well-known scientific journals about the actual experiments that prove what we already know deep down inside of us. We already know it if we open to it. It's that the plants and trees communicate. They respond to violence and sadness. just as they respond to love, to nurturing care, and to beautiful music. So there's actual scientific proof that backs up that these sacred sentient beings are always in communication with us. What I love about Julia Butterfly Hill's words is that she is sharing that deep connection that each one of us can create and forge with living sentient beings, with the planet Earth. Maybe you've read about the Japanese art of forest bathing. You know, there is a practitioner in our midst, Sandra Troiano, and she's actually an expert in forest bathing if you want to seek her out if you're in the neighborhood. But Japanese forest bathing, what I love about it is that there's this concept that is developed in your practice of it that's known as optimal flow. And the way that you move into developing optimal flow is that you move through these stages of forest bathing in a very systematic and mindful way. In order to begin, you begin with the threshold of connection. And in that, you go out into the forest and you begin to stand in one place for 15 minutes to take in everything that you can possibly absorb with your senses. You take in every stimulus with such mindfulness in order to activate within yourself what is known as embodied awareness. And as you are being ultra mindful, you're noticing. And then you begin to walk slowly for 20 more minutes. And as you are walking slowly, you're noticing everything that's in motion around you. And within that step, you begin to open yourself to sense what are the invitations that nature is giving me right now. You open yourself. Perhaps it is that you begin to sense that the grass is inviting you to lie down, or that the clouds are inviting you to gaze at them, or maybe the earthworm is inviting you to explore the soil. This is that phase of infinite possibility where you begin to tune in, and in time you become adept at recognizing and sensing and feeling and knowing all of these invitations. Finally, you sit in a spot for 20 minutes and you just let go and experience the energy of the forest. As you begin to close your forest bathing experience, you move back to where you began, and it closes with this beautiful tea ceremony. And you pause on that threshold of integration and incorporation before moving back into daily life. And the beauty of forest bathing is that it has been shown as they continue this practice as a meditative practice in Japan that many people are receiving physical healing as a result of engaging in it. People who have high blood pressure, their blood pressure is lowered, and some people are noticing that they are able to reduce their medications in certain ways and to rebalance within themselves and receive the real gift of the forest. Author M. Amos Clifford, the author of Your Guide to Forest Bathing, closes with this: our partnership with the forest and the whole of the more than human is a necessary thread on the loom of the evolution of the world. The trees offer us a bridge to our own wisdom. So how do we respond to Mother Earth, and if we haven't reestablished a deep connection with her? The Environmental Protection Agency estimates that in America, Americans spend maybe 7% of their life outdoors. And I realize that this may change when we live in places such as Colorado or in other natural places where the natural world is easily accessible. But it's becoming a global nature deficit disorder, in that we're unable to make our connection with nature. You know, pediatricians are beginning to prescribe time in nature to support children in recovering or with symptoms of ADHD and anxiety. Sharon Blackie writes in her book, If Women Rose Rooted, to enter into any wood is to enter into a realm which transformation seems inevitable. When we spend time in nature, that living, breathing matrix of life, we meet our real beauty because it is in the perfect mirror that reflects both our magnificence and our misery. And what I love about that is that it is about both and. It's about that reflection that we see from Mother Earth that is both our magnificence and our misery. And so the second idea that I want to share with you this evening is that we can build this deeper relationship within ourselves and with Mother Earth by connecting with the dark woods of our life. By the more we can take responsibility for ourselves and for the planet, the more we are able to face those darker, scarier places, both within our own lives and with what's going on in the world around us. You know, a few summers ago, my daughter Maddie played the role of the witch in the Broadway musical Into the Woods. And the lyrics to one of the songs goes like this. Into the woods, you have to grope, but that's the way you learn to cope. Into the woods, you'll find there's hope of getting through the journey. Into the woods, each time you go, there's more to learn of what you know. Into the woods, each time we go, there's more to learn of what we know. And we learn that by facing those dark places, the misery and the magnificence, and embracing them both and. St. Francis of Assisi interpreted the crucifixion, and in a way he said it's meaning that we die into our present life in order to live it more fully, which means that we completely surrender into whatever is present. We lean in rather than away. And as we lean in, we're able to breathe and reach a depth of love, much like the depth of the water in a holy sacred well. In his book about Assisi, entitled Eager to Love, Franciscan priest Richard Rohr writes, integrity is often a willingness to hold the dark side of things instead of reacting against them, denying them, or projecting our anxiety elsewhere. And in Franciscan mysticism, there's no distinction between the sacred and the mundane. All of the world is within that oneness, and it's all sacred. So we can choose to embrace and love those darker parts of ourselves, and we can be with both the internal and the external conflicts of life. Both and both of those, the internal and the external, by facing them, can bring us into a deeper connection in spirit. But it takes facing them, being present with them, acknowledging them, in order to allow them to be absorbed back into the love within our heart. Clarissa Pinkola Estes writes in her famous book, Women Who Run with the Wolves, go out into the woods, go out. If you don't go out in the woods, nothing will ever happen and your life will never begin. It's that dark wood that holds the healing and the deeper meaning of life. It's in realizing those parts that hold the strengthening agents that we need in order to respond to Mother Earth. And from this place of taking responsibility, full and complete ownership of what we are doing, feeling, creating, how we're personally behaving and making choices in our own life. From this place, we listen and we sense and we receive what it is that Mother Earth is requesting of us. With this, we hear that essence of what she's asking for. The authors of The Emerald Earth talk about the yeast of a new creation. Yeast, that ancient organism. Yeast is truly ancient. It's ancient. It's the substance of the earliest life forms. And each of us has yeast within our depths, this catalyst, this quickening energy, this intelligence. It's our creative imagination. It's our ability to realize, to recognize the sacred is present in every moment. You know, the authors say, we are the mirrors of sacred presence, and we bring it out into life. Each one of us has the power to be a catalyst for the possible in what sometimes seems and feels impossible. And so tonight, I would like to close with a visualization. And we're going to move into a visualization of the emerald earth based on the words from the authors Norton and Smith, in order to activate within ourselves new vistas, new possibilities for Mother Earth, and to begin to see and to participate in her revitalization by anchoring into this view. And so begin by settling in and closing your eyes if you feel comfortable. We invoke this presence and we activate within ourselves this space of visualization by listening to these passionate words from Nikos Kazantzakis. Everything you do reverberates through 1,000 destinies. As you walk, you cut open and create the riverbed into which the stream of your descendants shall enter and flow. We are one. From the blind worm in the depths of the ocean to the endless arena of the galaxy. Only one person struggles and is imperiled, and that is you. And within your small and earthen breast, only one thing struggles and is imperiled: the universe. So as we breathe, we enter into a visualization of the emerald earth right here, existing in that fullness of our intention. And this intention is not found in an enchanted land or an esoteric ritual. It is found right here in this present moment. We listen deeply to what is being asked of us in Mother Earth's care. We attune our hearts in this moment to the sacred manuscript of nature. We visualize our hearts united as humanity, fully serving the power of the natural world to restore herself fully. And we align with this power. We recognize and we receive the inspiration, the guidance, and the help from sources unseen. And we move ourselves into an awakened awareness of the sacred essence and the loving mystery that has always been guiding us. We are the mountains. We are the streams. We are inseparable from the very life of this universe. This Holy Spirit, this living spirit, this dove is within each of us. Each of us is a holy elixir, a healing force of love in action. Imagine visualize, intend. The sacred emerald earth, her beauty and intelligence is revered, is revitalized. The emerald earth is restored. And so it is.
So I want you to just take that in. Rob, keep that underscore going. Thank you, Zemirah. Beautiful talk. I just affirm in this moment that we are in the presence of abundance. We cannot outgive God. And there is so much beauty available to us. And I want to thank you for all the ways in which you have and in which you do support this community. You strengthen this community. If it calls to you, if you're able to support this community financially, thank you. We have up on the screen a number of ways that you can contribute. You can text to give. You can mail in a check, an offering. You can go to our website, milehighchurch.org. And if you're here, we have containers out in the lobby. However you give, however you contribute, you are the heart of this spiritual community. So bringing that awareness into the heart, you can repeat with me in your own mind if you wish. The gift I give is God in action. I live, move, and have my being in abundance. I am blessed, and I am a blessing. And so it is. Now we will turn it back over to the amazing Dr. Barry and this marvelous band.
Zemirah, I want to thank you for your beautiful talk. I really do. Yeah, that was really nice. This is a song that kind of goes with that talk. It was written by Rob Lowe and myself, and it's about that we're living in heaven right now. And I think that's what your talk was about. So, hit it, brother. There's talk of the end times again. Whenever the game gets rough, people saying our time is up and it's all about to blow. And who are the chosen ones whose flag will stand waving in the sun, like in all of those stories that we spun, praying round the fire. With our gods of war and anger, we fight for a promised land, with heaven somewhere far away. Will we ever understand? When we find the divine in our hearts and minds, each in our own way, we'll be living in heaven on that day. We'll be living in heaven on that day. When we find the divine in our hearts and minds. Each in our own way, we'll be living in heaven on that day. We'll be living in heaven on that day. I know that God's always here, every moment, every year. There is no calendar or fear to keep the one way. We're part of the one great plan. Every woman, child, and man, whatever your tribe or clan, our souls will carry on. And the masters come to show us we're not on this road alone. And they leave a trail to heaven here, and they welcome us back home. When we find the divine in our hearts and minds, each in our own way, we'll be living in heaven on that day. We'll be living in heaven on that day. Let's start living in heaven today.
Dr. Barry, thank you, Susan, Josh, Stu, and Rob. Y'all are amazing. Thank you for your gifts. And thank you for being here, whether you were here in this sanctuary or whether you were in your own sanctuary online. If you are in need or in desire of prayer, you can go to our website, milehighchurch.org, and fill out an online prayer request that will be prayed over by our prayer practitioners. This Sunday, you can watch us online or be here. Dr. Patty is going to be talking about love, not fear, or love without fear. And then next Wednesday, join us right back here. We're going to finish off this series, and I'm going to be talking about what you can do to make a difference for the environment. Thank you for being here. God bless.
I release and I let go. I let the Spirit run my life, and my heart is open wide. Yes, I'm only here for God. No more trouble, no more strife. With my faith I see the light. I am free in the Spirit. Yes, I'm only here for God. I release and I let go. I let the Spirit run my life, and my heart is open wide. Yes, I'm only here for God. No more struggle, no more strife. With my faith I see the light. I am free in the Spirit. Yes, I'm only here for God. Thanks for coming. Great having you here.